Hi, all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy, and the subjects can get saucy. So, if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted chats with some of the most interesting culinary voices in the American South. This region is one of the country's vacation and retirement playgrounds. But beyond the warm weather and beautiful scenery, there's a rich culture steeped in community and often dark and complicated history, and plenty of innovation among the tradition. I'm Stephanie Burt, and I've spent a career covering this region for magazines, newspapers, and websites. And to me, the best introduction to the American South is through its food culture and the growers and makers who make it delicious. I invite you to come on the road with me from the Appalachian Mountains to the clear waters of the Gulf of Mexico and everywhere in between. I'm always hungry for that next bite, thirsty for the next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The South can be a messy place, and that's not just because we love to cover our biscuits and gravy. If you're interested in looking beyond the headlines and digging deeper into stories from the region, I've got a podcast for you. It's called The Broadside, and it's produced by our friends at WUNC, North Carolina Public Radio. Hosted by award-winning podcast producer Anissa Khalifa, The Broadside explores news, history, and pop culture rooted in the American South. Each week, the show explores a single topic impacting the region. Along the way, they zoom out and explain how it reverberates across the country. The Broadside is your source for Southern news and culture stories, which might not be on the front page, but definitely deserve a deeper look. So go ahead, follow and listen to new episodes of The Broadside every week, wherever you get your podcasts. Although Charleston, South Carolina has changed a lot, it's still one of the cities in the U.S. with a decidedly European feel. Many parts of it are very walkable. There are cobblestone alleyways and al fresco dining, and lingering over a meal is absolutely encouraged. One of the best places to linger this time of year, or any time really, is Malagón Mercado y Tapería. Juan Cassalett is the executive chef and co-owner, and although he grew up in Tennessee and Colombia in South America, his family is originally from Spain. Malagón is a slice of Spain in the Holy City. There's jamon hanging from the rafters, a Spanish wine list, and a mercado filled with Spanish groceries, but the Lowcountry shines through too, in the seasonal dishes created with local ingredients. The restaurant has been featured in multiple publications, including Forbes, Charleston Magazine, and Conde Nast Traveler. Juan is married to Jill Mathias, executive chef and co-owner of Chez Nous, where he was the sous chef for 5 years. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Juan.
Hi.
I'm glad to be sitting here with you inside Malagón. I've never been here when it's empty.
Yeah, so we are closed today, so everybody can get a little rest. And yeah, it's nice to be in here when there's nobody in here.
It's very quiet. I've had my birthday meal here before. I've eaten a lot here before. I bring friends from out of town sometimes here. So I love this restaurant. It's open for lunch and dinner most days, right?
Yeah, so we're open straight through Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 10. And it's just one of those things for us that there's not a lot of restaurants that are open between, 3 to 5 o'clock. And so it's great for us.
And that is why I park it here.
Yeah.
Because it's great, especially for I came in with Ray Isle, Food and Wine. It was probably the last time I was in, and it's middle of the day. It was perfect. We could sit, talk shop, and talk about all the other writers.
Yeah.
But you spent 5 years working with your wife, Jill, as sous at Chez Nous before you opened this. And of course, you had a long tenure as chefs at other restaurants. But tapas is a very specific style of restaurant, and I know it's part of your heritage. It's also a pretty heavy lift as far as a chef goes. Can you tell me why it was important for you to open a tapas restaurant?
Yeah, so for me, like the thought of tapas in Charleston or even in the South is not really well known, even more just in the U.S. And so it just kind of gives us a way to kind of always have a little bit of a feel in the restaurant industry, just that it's something different. It's something that's very like not your typical, French or Italian or even any sort of like, other cultures, but this is just, it works for us.
And this is part of your heritage. I mentioned that, but you grew up in Tennessee. I mean, you've got a little bit of a Tennessee accent, although you've probably beaten it out of yourself a little bit at this point.
Yeah, no,
a lot of travel will do that for you.
Exactly. So yeah, I grew up in East Tennessee in Knoxville, and but yeah, my family also comes from Colombia, South America. So from that, and then through my grandfather in Spain. So it's quite a drastic amount of things. And then to end up in Charleston is just one little extra thing.
Yeah, but I think Charleston fits really well with this style of dining. And, you're really pushing against a couple things that are very Southern. I don't see this as much as I did 10 years ago when I started this podcast, but, or 9 years ago, I should say officially, but I should just round up. But people didn't want to share. Now it's like that's all we always wanted to do as food people, but now everybody wants to do it. And secondly, there was this idea of larger portion sizes. I choose mine. And if we don't get an appetizer, we can get out short. So these ideas of removing those fences, so to speak.
No, I mean, for us, we definitely recommend sharing 3 to 4 small plates per person. And then if you want like a larger thing, and I think it's very European where you sit with like your grandmother's house and everybody just shares everything. And I mean, even in Colombia, that's what we did. We just had big, lunches and dinners, and that's what you just kind of shared everything and kind of went around. And because you communicate, you talk with people. You're not just eating, you're sharing a moment with people and good and bad, whatever. And it's really a special kind of feeling and allows you to get to know your neighbors, allows you to know your friends, maybe the person that you're spending time with, like you get to know a little bit more about them because you're like, well, we're going to enjoy this together and see what it's like. And so,
yeah, there is something really magical about sharing. It makes things a little bit easier for conversation. I know when I was in Mexico City this spring, those lunches were like 3 hours long.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh my goodness. Like we've been at this for a while, but I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely here for it. Now, back of the house, chef life.
Yes.
How are you rolling out? Because your execution is really good. I mean,
Thank you.
That's the point of being on the Southern Fork. It's already a like done deal that I'm a big fan. So how do you deal with those kinds of executions in different spaces? How do you deal with that as the executive chef and then also training a staff that isn't as familiar with the form?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the fun is getting to teach the staff that usually they have no idea what Spanish food is about, just a little bit about it. And then, you through teaching, you get to learn more about your craft. You get to learn more about how it is that you actually want to execute these things and how it is that you want to really showcase the ingredients that we get. So, I mean, for us, our main thing is just being a teaching kitchen without it being like over the top in your face kind of teaching, but that's also in the front for, our servers or even to our guests, because a lot of them don't really know a lot about this stuff. So it's a way that, people understand like the patatas bravas, the tortillas, stuff like that. But sometimes, when you do a dish like the fideos or something like that, that's a little bit different, more regional, like specific. It gives us it allows people to try different parts of Spain, but also kind of tying to the the thing about being in Charleston, like there's a lot of similarities between Spanish food and Southern food in general. I mean, it's very pork heavy. It can be light and kind of like acid driven, as a lot of stuff is down here. So it's really interesting. And there's a lot of like usage of grains. And so it's pretty cool to kind of see that. And when I have people that have cooked a lot of Southern food and that's what they're used to, and they're like, oh man, this kind of reminds me of my grandmother's cooking. I'm like, this is amazing. Cause we're like, that's the ultimate goal for me, is to have somebody be like, this is like a relative memory from whatever it is. That's like, okay, we're hitting it.
Yeah. And also too, you start to see the connection, that humanness, like we're going to go, grain heavy as humans. Yeah. We need acid in our plates to make that brighter. What is the dish that you test people on, your new cooks, when they get it, they can move on?
Well, for me, it's the tortilla española, because it's a super
classic.
special. Yeah, it's a classic dish, but it's also really special to me because it was something that I had with my grandfather, and he was the one that really he pushed a lot of Spanish like upon me, and always asked me if I was either Catalan or Castellano, because my family on my dad's side comes from Catalonia, and so I always had to say Castellano because he was from La Mancha, from the south. So tortilla was just one of those things that you just shared. And anywhere you go in Spain, like there's a tortilla somewhere. And like it's always such a sign of like, hello. Like I remember we went on vacation in Galicia, and the woman that was staying next to us brought us over tortilla the first day because she was so excited that we were there. But it's also like, hey, welcome to Galicia. So,
yeah, that's a great welcome.
Yeah. So exactly. So, but that's for me is like, if you can execute this to the way that we want it done, like you can definitely move on to whatever else you want to do.
Well, we're not going to give away any trade secrets, but let's dig in for a minute on that, because I remember I was at Atlanta Food and Wine years ago, and Katie Button did a demo, and she said, this is what you cook at night when your friends have been drinking on your porch for a long time and everyone needs to eat. And she did it with potato chips.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was the Ferran Adria trick.
Yeah. So talk to me about the Malagón
tortillas. So we kind of go more towards the Galician style, which is a little bit more runny on the inside. But we just take Yukon Gold potatoes, onion, garlic, and cook that all down, some olive oil. Then we'll fold in some eggs, and we get these cast irons nice and hot, put in some olive oil, just let it all kind of cook. And then once it's about halfway there, we'll actually once it's been in the oven for about 5 minutes, we'll take it out and we'll actually flip it out into the pan and then go back into the cast iron so that it's nice and kind of bubbly on the top, and then add a little bit of alioli on top, little chives and sea salt, and that's it.
Wow. I wish I'd had more breakfast now. That sounds really, really great.
Yeah.
How did you get into cooking, Juan? I don't think I've ever known that answer.
So I started cooking when I was actually a server's assistant at Peninsula Grill back when Bob Carter was the chef. And those guys were just they were just amazing. I just remember watching them and being like, how do they do this? How is it that they're doing that?
The focus.
Yeah. And it was just the technique and everything about it. And they were just so precise and clean and everything. I was like, I want to learn how to do this. And so, I was kind of going to culinary school, not really, and because I wasn't totally bought in, but that really just kind of sold me. And I reached out to Jeremiah Bacon at Carolinas, and he's like, yeah, well, I'll take you on. And so he was definitely that person that gave me the opportunity to start my career, and he always kind of pushed me, and he was just a great mentor.
He's been a mentor for so many, behind the scenes mentor for so many people, although he was executive chef for years at Macintosh, and then Oak before, now has moved on up into the company, Indigo Road. Yeah, I've heard that he is a really patient, amazing, but exacting teacher.
Yeah, I mean, we had, the people that he had in that kitchen, it was Jill, myself, Dano Hines, all these just really amazing people, Jacob Hooter, that just came through there. And he just he was really good about kind of picking up on your weaknesses and then your strengths, and really kind of getting you better at that stuff. I'm a much better fish cook because of him. I'm a much better, a lot of things because of him. Jill and I definitely gained a lot from him, and we kind of learned the right way to treat people, purveyors, everybody that comes in the door, it's just saying hello, just saying goodbye to everybody, because it just, you don't know what that could do for somebody. So it's not even so much on the cooking thing, but just as a person, he's just really great.
I agree. As a person, he is really great. But I think that that's an important point, that, this is your life. This is your day-to-day life. And if you're treating all of the people that you're working with, people that are your purveyors coming in the door, like transactional moments, then you really have very few close relationships.
Totally.
One thing that you and Jill are really known for here in Charleston, in a city where Eat Local is so wonderful, is working with very specific purveyors. Yep. And so when you're trying to do something very regionally specific, like Spain is a large country, just like the United States. So there's completely different regions. And so you're trying to walk that line between needing some things from Spain because you need things from Spain.
Come on.
To working with some local purveyors. Who is a local purveyor that you feel, or a few that you feel really help elevate the food in this restaurant?
Well, definitely Lowland Farms. Skinny he is amazing at the vegetables that he does. Just different types of people that the different pork purveyors that we get. Everybody in Charleston, there's so many different people that you can really Pete Ambrose, all these people that you just they're so few and far between that are not good at what they do. Kendall Farms, and they go from way up north to it's kind of hard to literally specifically pick a couple, but I would say Pete and Skinny are our favorites. So
yeah. Well, we had a great time out at Skinny's farm for Charleston Wine and Food. We got all smoky at the grill drinking wine, and you were cooking. We had a great excursion out there supporting Certified South Carolina, and a farm excursion, Southern Fork listeners, where I talked to people about different farms on Johns Island, and we all got on a bus and it got stuck in the mud.
Yes.
But it got out of the mud, and then we had copious amounts of wine, not me and not the driver, but everyone that was there. Lots of food, lots of wine, and it was a great time on the farm.
Yeah, I think actually Pete got you guys stuck, right? Or unstuck.
Yes. Oh, yes. And then Pete came to lunch.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Of course.
Yes, that's what you definitely want to do. But, I think it's important to really talk about those kinds of relationships. And one of the things at the Southern Fork that I've really tried to do through the 10 years is talk about food and context. And that means that you're not eating in a vacuum. Pete's behind the scenes, and that memory, when you see him and he delivers, or you get it through Grow Food or whatever, then you have that little moment. And there's this whole community, Dano, because y'all work together at Carolinas. Mm-hmm. It's that whole community. Do you feel like you're building that here at Malagón, and it extends beyond at this point?
I mean, that's the goal. That's the dream, For me, I always know that I want to make the next batch of chefs. I want somebody that's going to follow in my footsteps, but make it better. That way, the food scene just continues to get better, especially in Charleston. There's so much competition.
That's what makes it good, though.
It's what makes it good.
But it's friendly competition, right?
100%. I mean, in our neighborhood, we have amazing chefs. I got Jill, Dano, James. It's just the list just goes on and on and on. Not even including, Chef Lotta down the street from The Ordinary. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just it's insane. And
Orlando.
Orlando. Sorry, it's incredible,
And that's 1.5 blocks, y'all.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And, we all help each other out. We all do whatever. And it makes you stronger, because obviously you want the community to get better. And when people get nominated for X, Y, and Z, you support them, because you're like, heck yeah. Because you know what? When they're too busy at their place, they're going to come to my place, or vice versa. So it's just and that's what you want. But yeah, for me, it's if I can make the next group of people like Jeremiah did for kind of my generation of cooks, if I can do that, then I've done my part. Mm-hmm. It's I know that I'm good at my little block here, but I want somebody to be twice as good as I am. I want someone, because that's what we're all about.
Yeah. What do you think makes a good chef?
I think a good chef is somebody that is a great mentor, but also just in the cooking aspect. I think somebody that has a great palate, not only in terms of like the dishes that they create, but also in the humility to be like, you know what, I don't think this is great, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, and having the team be behind that, having the ability to just not have that big ego, but also somebody that's going to mentor and teach people like the right way to do things, you know, and hold people accountable to the things that sometimes might be a little bit like, ooh, I don't know, like, you know, and not being scared to take those chances and not be scared to, you know what, like this person might not like this, but that's the way that it is.
You know, I think part of also too why we didn't talk for a long time is because you're so quiet in the kitchen, and this is an open kitchen.
Yeah.
And so I mean, y'all are head down. When I'm in here, it's always busy, like I said. So, you know, there's that quietness, that direction in the kitchen. Did you ever work for a screamer?
Yeah. And I mean, I was, you know, it's that's the way you were brought up. I mean, I'm so happy that things have changed and things are much better in the kitchen. I think that there can be a balance, not necessarily with screaming because nobody deserves that, but definitely being like I said, holding people accountable.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely have been in those situations, and you know, it is what it is.
Yeah,
and
it's the heat of the moment, and also too, as somebody who has had to cook and talk in front of people before, I can't imagine trying to like direct and talk. And lots of times, executive chefs like yourself, you're running expo, you're not like running a station, but you could be if somebody calls out.
Totally.
And you know, on fish, where 15 seconds is the difference between perfect and overcooked.
Absolutely.
And then you see somebody doing something.
Yeah, and I mean, I think sometimes it's just learning from your mistakes, learning from, you know, like just if you do make that mistake and you do overcook that piece of fish, being like, okay with it happening, like being like, okay, this is a mistake, let's do it again, but let's work on it. And, you know, I think people respond from that properly. Like for you to say that I'm quiet is actually pretty funny because I don't think that my staff would agree with you on that. I like to have a good time back there. So. Yeah,
well, I get it. But I mean, you know, I've been around a lot of kitchens, you know, and so I don't feel like there's a bunch of chatter.
No, I mean, look, we have a good time back there, and we definitely talk. But yeah, when stuff's going and you have to put your head down, it's not, you just, you know, ask for what you need and you just keep going. And that's the more fine dining you get, the quieter the kitchens are. I have experienced. Absolutely.
And a lot of fine dining kitchens, you can actually sit in the kitchen, you know, like places in New York and stuff. And that's basically what you're doing here too, but just everyone.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, again, it's like something that like, it takes a lot of changing for people because a lot of people do have that door. A lot of people do have that like separation. So things can get a little bit loud, but for us, it's like, I'm very anal about slamming of doors and slamming of like making like unnecessary noises, as I call it. Like there's noises in the restaurant that I love. I love the sound of like silverware, stuff like that. I don't like it when it's thrown. Like there's like a big difference. And so
that's interesting. Yeah.
So it's,
I'm behind that because I'm all about the soundscape.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Jeremiah always told me that, you know, you get tinnitus. And so it's like all of a sudden, I'm like, please stop. Please stop with that.
Yeah. Well, and Chez Nous is a place where there's no shaker. Yeah. There's no cocktail shaker.
Nope.
And it just creates this different atmosphere. You don't realize, but sound is important.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, Chez Nous is, again, it's pretty much open. I mean, the kitchen feels open because when you walk in, you have that like window. So you're on display from minute one. But yeah, it's the different styles, but that's also a very quiet kitchen as well, which is kind of funny. Like, because Jill and I are not very quiet in general. So.
I know this now. It took me a while, but I figured it out. Do you still enjoy cooking?
I love it. I really do. And it's one of those things where we are constantly kind of tweaking things, making things better here. And that's what really makes me enjoy it. And kind of going back on the thing of like, I have some really amazing employees right now, amazing staff that just like, they are buying into everything. You can just see it like in their eyes, and that's what like makes you so happy to be like here and helping them. And
it's fun to be creating together.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's just fun,
and they're so good. Like it's just like, and I don't have to even ask them. Like I'm like, they're like, well, what about this? What about this? I'm like, that's amazing. Like let's go for it. You know, so it's that's what makes it so much fun. And it makes my job so much easier. But, it's the same thing with the front though. I mean, like we have amazing managers. We have amazing front of the house staff. Learning all the Spanish wines that majority of them I've never even heard of. And then to try to teach our guests about it is twice as hard. And on top of that, the food. And so, yeah, it's really, really cool. It's a really amazing time to be in Malagón. So I'm really very happy.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Oh, you deserve it.
Everybody deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to ask, what is making you hungry then? What's next on the horizon for you? I think it's something across the pond.
It is. So we, with our business partners, Fanny and Patrick and Chris Kellogg, and Jill and I, we are going to open up a wine bar called La Bonbonnette in Paris, in the Marais. Hopefully by the end of October. We're very excited. So that's keeping me very excited, obviously. Never thought that I would have anything outside of Charleston, much less in Europe. So this is something that we're very excited about and very proud to kind of have that. So.
Oh, another excuse.
Yes.
Yes. What is one aspect of being a chef that really meshes like a puzzle piece with a natural part of your personality?
I think it's the creative and kind of endurance that it takes to work the long hours to do all that stuff, because I'm a very energetic person. So you're also a runner too, right? I am.
Yes.
So like it gives me a lot of energy, and I really
not tired enough after a night.
No. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it gives you the ability to do so much. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the energy and just the feeling of being in the restaurant that like really meshes well with me. So
yeah, not a desk job kind of person.
No, I just traveling, I get so much like ADD, and like it's awful.
Yeah, you're like, stay in your seat, sir. Can you please put your seatbelt back on, sir?
Jill's like, can you sit down for 5 seconds?
Is there something keeping you up at night? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, just the way that the restaurant industry is. We all got a huge lesson with COVID, and some of us were not as lucky as others, and just not taking anything for granted. So it's just those things like I was talking about. Like, I feel very lucky that we have the set that we have. I feel very lucky that the restaurant is open, just in general. So that is what keeps me up. It's just like keeping that intensity that we need to be able to compete with other restaurants within Charleston and anywhere else. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you fed me well many times, and I know you're going to feed me well again. So this is a question that I reserved just for Southern Fort guests, and I'm so excited to actually have the time to sit down with you for so long today. This is my magic picnic basket question. So years ago, I used to ask the death row meal, and my little thing is I don't believe in the death penalty. So instead, I want to bring you some things that bring you life. And I have this magic picnic basket. I can time travel. I can go back and ask anybody to make one more bite of something that you would like. I can cook a little bit. It's more granny pimento cheese style.
Sounds amazing.
Pound cake.
Yeah.
I do a pretty good pound cake. And I can source for you. So I'd love to put some things in this basket for you. I know it shifts and changes depending on seasons and what you love, because you're a food person. Yeah. So today, what is coming to mind?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, I'm a big fan of like pastas. So I would say some sort of like especially like Roman pastas. So maybe the cacio e pepe from a place like Roscioli, or anything like that. Any of those places in Rome.
And that's such a simple dish.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not, but it is. But you know what I'm saying? Like pepper and butter.
Yeah. And
cheese. Yeah. And it's just insane.
No, I mean that, and we're just there's a town called Campagnano di Roma. There's a restaurant called Iotto that, oh my gosh, it's so special and amazing, and just being there, that would be the combination of the two. Then I'd be in heaven.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, you got to pick wine for it. Come on, picnic basket. I can't imagine you not having that.
Yeah, I would probably say some sort of Chisani Montrachet or something in those realms of a nice Chardonnay.
Lovely. Well, if people want to learn more about Malagón and the great food that is happening here, as my stomach is growling, I'm going to ignore that and make sure that I delete it out of the sound I can hear in my headphones right now. You can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have images there as well as links so you can get to their webpage. I am a firm believer that, yes, you should eat here.
Thank you.
Next time you're in Charleston. That's basically what the Southern Fork is about. I want you to feel like you know someone when you land in a place.
That's
and
amazing.
Now you know one a little bit. So if you come in after hearing the Southern Fork, please say hey.
Yeah, I'm always in the back there, so come say hello.
Yeah. And he won't yell at you.
No.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. Well, we've come upon one of my favorite months of the year, June. The reason I love June is the beginning of summer. Summer is my favorite time of year. It's not blazing hot yet. Actually, it's pretty hot, but it's not August hot yet. And it is one of the best times of the year to eat fresh produce. We've just gone through strawberries and asparagus and blueberries. Now blackberries are coming in, peaches. We've got all the squash and all the zucchini and of course the tomatoes and then the eggplant and all the peppers. So, oh yeah, and okra. I love okra. But I would love to encourage you here today to actually hit a farmer's market, not just because I'm a big fan of buy local and because actually purchasing local foodstuffs means that your food is more nutritious, usually because it has not been out of the ground as long as the stuff that you get in big box stores. But no, today I really want you to focus on the idea that there is more than one variety of something. Every time I eat at Malagón, I think about this because Juan and Jill at Chez Nous are really very specific about the varieties of vegetables, just like many chefs are, that they have in their restaurants, that they want to see on the plate. Lots of times, Americans think of things as squash, tomatoes, Chardonnay, right? And actually, there's a lot of flavor variation in all of those words. So if you hit a farmer's market, you're going to find what some people would term unusual or weird vegetables. Of course, they are just new to you. Somebody around the world loves to enjoy them. I like looking for different kinds of onions. That has been really fun. Of course, I'm always on the search for the perfect heirloom tomato, especially looking at you, Cherokee Purple. I love different varieties of peaches and, they have different flavors. They work for different preps. It's kind of like what my friend Diane Flint talks about in her book, The Apple Book, which is Wild, Tame, Lost, and Revived. She talks a lot about the different varieties of apples and how they're good for different kinds of things. We're familiar with that. We know that some apples are better eating apples, right? And some apples are better pie apples or stewing apples, but we forget about it when it comes to summer produce. So if you want a little fun on the weekend, avoid the big box stores and go to a farmer's market. It won't be August blazing hot yet, and you might just find a few varieties of tomatoes or peaches that you've never tried before. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to being here with you next week. I am going to go eat my patty pan squash tonight for dinner, so hope you have something good planned as well.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you gonna eat all that?